Prepping. My name is Teresa. I'd like to welcome you out to the shed of many names, where this time we're going to be doing a little bit more rebel canning. Now, if you don't feel comfortable doing it, you don't have to, but I have made many a batch of meatloaf and it turns out wonderful. Now, we will be making canned meatloaf. Now, for some, it will be very different for you because there's not going to be any fillers in it, because you cannot pressure can bread products. You shouldn't, at least. So there's not going to be any breadcrumbs, no crackers, no rice in the meatloaf. There will be a little bit of egg, but as long as you mix it in very well, you'll never know it's in there, and it's just a binder. Alright, let's get started. Now, one thing, I'll have all the ingredients that I use in the recipe box, in the description box below the video. Now, you don't have to use all the ingredients that I do. We just like really seasoned meatloaf. We are not big into plain food. Now, like I said, all the seasonings are optional, but you will need to use some. I'll go into more detail. There's certain things that you do need to use in it. Alright, let's get busy, because you're going to want a well-seasoned jarred meatloaf. Now, what I'm going to start out first with, make sure everything is sanitized, everything's clean, your hands are clean. Now, this one I found on clearance for $1.29, being the clearance queen I am. It's pico de gallo salsa. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up, of course, and I'm going to let it drain for a little while, because mostly what I'm wanting is the flavor of the veggies in there. And if I need to, I will add some of the juice back in. And always remember, recycle. Recycle if you can. Okay, now I'm going to need, I usually use 3 onions. Today I have 2 onions. And I'm going to use 3 bell peppers. Now, if you don't have fresh bell peppers, you can use dehydrated bell peppers. It'll be perfectly fine. Now, I'm going to get busy, dice the onions and the bell peppers up, and I will bring you back as soon as I get done with that. Okay, I got my 2 onions, and I'd mince them medium to fine, because I want them in small pieces. Done my 2 onions, and I only done 2 bell peppers, a red and an orange, because I decided that after looking at my salsa, there's plenty of bell peppers in it, so 2 should be fine. And of course, in being organic, I save the tops to get those precious seeds out of them here after a while. Right now, I forgot to mention, I am starting with 9 pounds of 8119. Now, you want to get as lean as possible. Now, you can mix the 8119 with some 9010 to make it less fattening, but you need just a little bit of fat in there. And we're going to scoop those in. And of course, I'm going to mix them all in here soon. Get it all mixed up real good. Make sure I get all my peppers off. All my onions in there. Let me tell you, those onions have been in storage for a while. They were rough. Okay, now I'm going to dump my salsa in, and that'll give me some more seasoning, give me little pieces of tomato and a little jalapeno, and a few other wonderful things. And I'm going to go on, and this is 4 very well scrambled eggs. You want to make sure that you scramble these very well. Now let's do some seasoning. And like I said, all seasoning is optional. I want 2 tablespoons. Yes, I'm old school. 2 tablespoons. That's 1 tablespoon. Well, heaping tablespoon. There's another. That's 2 tablespoons of dried oregano. Just in case, I want a tablespoon of onion powder. Now, I do not use onion salt. If you want to use onion salt, you can. But I use onion powder. I want, well, a good sprinkling of paprika. And probably about a tablespoon of paprika. Optional. Good tablespoon of black pepper, ground black pepper. 2 heaping tablespoons of dried parsley. Because you don't want to eat no plain meatloaf. Get my mess cleaned up over here. Clean as you go. Now, I'm using crushed, homemade, diced mushrooms. That's going to be about a ½ a cup. And then some. And don't worry, they will rehydrate as the meatloaf cooks. And I'm using 2 tablespoons of Slap Your Mama. Optional. We're going to get the dry ingredients. We like garlic here, and I want to make sure that there is plenty of garlic in it. So I'm going to do a heaping tablespoon of garlic powder. Oops, wrong lid. I want 2 tablespoons of minced garlic. Oh, that smells so good. And yes, you'll see why I'm using liquid smoke. I want, a healthy capful. 1, 2. Now let's go for 3. What the heck? You'll see why here when I go to jar it up. Okay. Now comes the fun part. Get my gloves on. And I'm using latex-free, non-powdered gloves. You want to make sure that your gloves do not have powder in them, because that will mess up your meatloaf. Now the fun begins. Now that I've got everything in there, you want to get in there and make sure you mix it all in there well. And like I said, I'm using 9 pounds of 81.19. Oh, this smells so good. And the only binder in here is going to be the little bit of egg that has been used. And that was 4 large eggs. Like I said, I'll have all the ingredients that I used in the description box below. And as always, everything's optional. Oh, this meat is cold. But you want to make sure you get it mixed well, so that in each jar you have the seasoning, you have vegetables in there, because you know you're going to have meat. You want to make sure that you get it all good and incorporated. And we're going to be doing cold canning, so the jars will be room temperature, the canner will be room temperature. Look at that, isn't that beautiful? And let me tell you, I wish you could smell this. This is amazing. It smells absolutely amazing. And so you want to get in there and squish everything together. You want to make sure that it is incorporated very well. Whew. My hands are frozen. And hopefully I should get anywhere from 9 to 10 pints out of this mixture. Like I said, those mushrooms will rehydrate. Alright, I'm going to change my gloves. Let my hands warm up a little bit. I'm going to get my jars ready, put my spices all up, clean, re-sanitize the countertop. And I will bring you back when it's time to put these in jars, which won't be long at all. See you here in a little bit. Now the fun begins of jarring it up. Let me bring you down. Now, there won't be any using of a debubbler. This is going to be your debubbler. Now, I'm going to want gloves. Let me grab my gloves. Yes, this is messy. You definitely going to want a bowl of vinegar and a rag or a paper towel to make sure you clean your jar rims very well. Now, you never know how many jars you're actually going to make when adding vegetables to your meatloaf. So just in case, I don't think I'm going to make 12 jars, but I have 12 jars out. Now here are my lids. Now they are the lids that you do not have to preheat, and my bands. So, and don't panic on me. You're going to want to make sure you have about 1.5 inch head space. And you want to make sure that you smush it down and there are no bubbles at all. Now, you can use 1.5 pint jars. I'm using wide mouth pint jars. You're going to want to use wide mouth jars with this. That way the meatloaf will slide out of your jar when you go to open it. A pint jar is plenty of meatloaf to feed 2 people. And you should, if done right, each person should get 1 really huge slice or 2 smaller slices. You want to double check, make sure that there's no air pockets, no bubbles, nothing. You want to make sure that you push it down very well. And there's the first jar. Let's do 1 more. Now, my jars are cold, and so is my canner. The water in my canner is cold, because this hamburger, the meatloaf, is cold as well. And of course, as your meatloaf cans, it will shrink in the jar. And you will see all the fat and flavor surrounding it. sure you have about 1.5 inches headspace. Okay. Now I will bring you back once I get all the jars done, and I will show you the next step. See you after a while. Well, I'm pleasantly surprised. I did get 12 pint jars, and just enough left for me to make one meatloaf burger with, which I'll be splitting with my other half so we each know what it tastes like. Now, here comes the important part. Now, you're going to want to go through quite a few rags, because there is fat all over that rim. There's no getting away from it. You just cannot help it. Now, that it is extremely important that you pack this jar very tightly, because it's going to shrink in cooking, so do not worry about that one bit. The tighter you get it packed, that means no air bubbles, and that means that your meatloaf is going to form and hold together. Now, you can use all 90-10, but you're going to need just a little bit of fat in there so you can so it doesn't become dry. And you want to make sure that you get all of that off that rim, and automatically when you get done with one jar, go and get ready to use the other side of your paper towel, your dishcloth, whatever you use, and keep up with it, because you're going to want to flip it as often as possible, or per jar. Now, here's where you get to choose. I'm going to be using Bullseye barbecue sauce original. You can use tomato paste. You can use ketchup. You can use whatever you want to top your meatloaf. This time, I couldn't find any tomato paste at Dollar Tree, so I'm using Bullseye barbecue sauce. And you're going to want just a tablespoon, because it will mix with the grease and the fat, and it will make a sauce. Fine. And like I said, double check it. Of course, before you ever use your jars, make sure there's no nicks, no cracks. And as always, it's a ball jar. Double check those lids. Put your lid on. Put your band on just finger tight. Put it into your cold canner. I'm going to set it right there. I'm going to do one more before I get busy doing all these other ones. And I'm using straight vinegar because it will cut the grease with no problem. Now that rag is ready to go for jar number 3. And you don't want to use more than a tablespoon of whatever topping you want. Now if you want to, if you have a bigger family, you can use the 1.5 pint jars. or the quart jars. Just realize you're not going to get as many meatloaves. And I always double check, make sure I don't see any grease on the rim. Put your lid on. Put your band on, just barely finger tight. And I'm going to go put it in the canner. When I get all these jars done, I will bring you back. See you after a while. I have all 12 pints in the canner. I have 2 inches of water in the bottom, cold water in the bottom of my canner, a big glug of vinegar. Now, when you're cleaning the rims of your jars, if it takes 3, 4, 5 times, whatever, make sure those rims are spotless. Make sure there's no grease on it or your seal will not seal. Now, do not worry if there might be some siphoning that happens. It depends on how much fat is in your hamburger. I'm going to get the lid. Uh-oh, hold on a second. I am using a 921 All-American, one of the best pressure canners there is. Now, with mine, I don't have to worry about no rubber seals, no rubber rings, no nothing. But I do have to oil, and I use olive oil to oil around my rim so that my lid will not lock down. Just believe me, you do not want to try to pressure can without oiling that, because your lid will lock down onto your canner. Now, we're going to barely finger tight, and you want to go opposite sides. Barely finger tight. And be careful, these will be getting warmer. I have my flame on, and you want to go back and tighten them down. And that way your lid is level on your pressure canner. Now, you want to bring this up to vent slow and steady. So about a medium to it's a low high setting, so I would say anywhere either 6 or 7 if you have numbers on your stove, but I'd say either 6 or 7. You do not want to bring this up to temp fast, because your meat's cold, your canner's cold, so is the water cold inside. And I will bring you back as soon as she comes up to temp. I'm looking forward to making more meatloaf. The first 2 batches were really good. Now we have some left, but we're doing this one a little different, and I'm looking forward to it. See you at the wall. Okay, she has come up to temp. I'm going to let her vent. This is called venting. I'm going to let her vent for 10 minutes, and I will bring you back as soon as the venting is done. See you here in a little bit. She has been venting for 10 minutes. Now for my altitude, I have to use 10 pounds of pressure. Now you need to know what your altitude is. If you have an agricultural extension agency near you, you can find out what weight you'll need to use. You'll either use a 5, a 10, or 15. And like I said, I'm going to be using a 10. I'm going to let her slowly build up to 11 pounds of pressure. And when she does, I'll bring you back and we're going to start this canning. See you in a little bit. She is at a steady 11 pounds of pressure. And since I'm doing pints, I will can these for 75 minutes. Now if you're doing pint and a half, And quart jars, it's going to be 90 minutes. So I will see you back here in 75 minutes. Alright, she's been cooking for 75 minutes at 11 pounds of pressure. What I'm going to do now is cut the flame completely off. Don't touch anything. And I'm going to leave her alone. Let her come naturally down to zero pressure. Let it sit for about 30-45 minutes. And I will bring you back as soon as it's time to open her up. See you after a while. Okay, she has cooled down, and it is time to remove the weight and get this lid off. Now, you're going to want to use a pot holder to pull your weight off because it is hot. Always remember that. And you're going to open her up on opposite sides. And always open the lid away from you. See all that steam? Last thing you want is to get burnt. Because steam burns are horrible. Alright, let's get our first one out. Beautiful, beautiful. Hot, bubbling meatloaf. Alright, I'm going to unload the rest of the canner and bring you right back. And there we have 12 beautiful jars of canned homemade meatloaf. That will be 12 meals right there. Simple, easy, anybody can do this. You just have to believe in yourself. You saw how I done it. You can do it too. If I can do it, you can do it as well. And I want to leave, I also want to tell you, let them sit. Make sure they have plenty of space between them so they can cool. Let them sit for about 24 hours. After 12 hours, make sure the seals have sealed. Whichever have not sealed, put them in your fridge and eat them within a couple of days. Nothing's wrong with them. Your seal just didn't seal. That's all. They are fully cooked and they are ready to eat when we get ready. Now, as they cool, the meatloaf will go back down to the bottom of your jar, so don't worry. Now, there will be, depending on which kind of hamburger you use, you want to try to use the least amount of fat as possible. But you want some fat because you don't want your meatloaf to be dry as a bone. After the 24 hours, make sure to take your bands off, give them a nice wash in warm, not hot, warm, sudsy water to get any siphoning out. It siphoned just a little bit, but that doesn't mean that anything's wrong with your meatloaf. Wash your jars real good, let them dry, label them, and put them away. Simple, easy, anybody can do this. Give me just a minute. As the meatloaf continues to bubble in the jars, I wanted to hope this video encourages you to also make your own homemade canned meatloaf. This hamburger is getting more and more expensive. And this way we guarantee that we have some hamburger put back on the pantry shelves. Simple, easy, anybody can do this. You just have to believe in yourself and have the ingredients. Now, if you please leave comments in the comment section below. If you have any questions, please do not delete them. I will answer them as soon as possible. Please ask questions if you have questions. I am perfectly fine with that. Now, all you'll have to do to get them out of the jar when you're ready to eat them is set them in some hot water and let what fat's on the outside liquefy again, and your meatloaf will slide right out of the jar. Simple, easy, homemade. Everyone, take care. I look forward to seeing you in my next video, and may you each be blessed. See you soon.